there are lots and lots of ways to establish OUs. So let's go ahead and click forward, and we'll show you the first one here. So this is actually, turns out, inside the GPMC right there. There's a way you can right-click over the domain or over a sub-OU and just create a new OU right here. So I'm creating sales1 OU. Totally simple, but it turns out there's a super secret way to get protection. So let's go ahead and click forward. And you can see here that what I've done is I've got a second screenshot here. This is Active Directory users and computers. So it turns out if you decide you're going to use Server 2008 and use the Active Directory users and computers, you have this extra little protect this container from accidental deletion. That's pretty cool. Actually, I know a lot of people who've seen that and played with it and kind of just set it and ignored it, which is pretty cool. The downside is most people don't know how to turn this thing off. And I'm going to show you real quick how to turn this off in case you've actually got a protected container, how to actually, whack it if you need to. So let's go ahead and click forward. There we go. So actually here, whoops, go back one, I think. There we go. So what we see here is what happens if you try to whack a container that has that little check mark on it. You actually are self-protecting yourself, and you get a kind of a weird message. It says you, the admin who just created this OU, you don't have sufficient permissions to delete sales2. The object is protected from accidental deletion. So that's true. That's exactly what we saw. Let's go ahead and click forward, and I'll show you how to turn this thing off. So first things first, you're going to click on, inside Active Directory users and computers, the View Advanced Features checkbox, as you can see that's highlighted here. And when you do that, let's go ahead and click forward. You can see here that there's a new tab that will pop up if you go to the properties of that object called Object. And you can see the checkbox. If you squint real close, you can see that says Protect Object from Accidental Deletion. And if we go ahead and click forward, you'll see here that it will be removed, okay? So now that it's removed, you can actually, you're now unprotected. So I can't tell you how many times I get the phone call from friends of mine or like, hey, Moskowitz, how do I inadvertently created this OU. I could rename it and all that, but I just want to get rid of it. How do I do that? If you've been caught in this little sand trap, hopefully that will get you out of that. So let's go ahead and click forward. Okay, so one of the things that I want to cover here is who can do what upon group policy objects. And I think that this is sort of a big misnomer. This is a different topic for a different day, but we're going to cover a little bit of this here. But I do want to express who can create GPOs. Now, a lot of people say, well, yeah, of course, domain admins can create GPOs. And that's true, they can. But I do want to establish who really can create GPOs. And, because beyond that, you might have lots of other administrator types who need to create them. OU administrators, you might even have, somebody with a specialty use case need to create GPOs. So what are you going to do? Well, it turns out that if you click on the Group Policy Objects node, and I've highlighted that here in the bottom left, you can see that it says Group Policy Objects, and you click on the Delegation tab, you can add in a user. Now, that's the new and better way. The old and crusty way is to add people to the old-school NT-style group called Group Policy Creator Owners. Now, they'll both work, and you can see here, if you look closely, you'll see that under Delegation, look who has rights. Yeah, those guys in the Group Policy Creator Owners. So you want to make sure that you either put them in the old and crusty way, not preferred, or the better way, which is what we've described here. All right, let's go ahead and click forward. Now, just because you've created group policy objects does not mean that you have the ability to utilize them anywhere. So in this example, let's say I had the need for this guy, eSalesUser1, to create GPOs, but he still doesn't have the ability to leverage them or link them anywhere. You actually have to delegate that right. So the idea is you're going to click on eSalesUsers, the OU, click on Delegation, the tab, and grant the right, which is link GPO's permission to that guy. Now, you're probably not going to link it to a direct guy exactly. No. You're probably going to give it to a group. That makes sense. But in this little simple example, I've kind of just simplified it for our examples there. All right. So I think that's all I really want to say about that. You just click on the place you want to give the rights, click on Delegation, add the permission in, and you're ready to go. So I guess I'll turn it back over to Nick.
Cool. So the basic premise here that Jeremy's trying to cover is in order to avoid the problems in the long run is to properly establish the permissions in the beginning. And so Jeremy's kind of covered some of the ways that we do it with the native tools. I want to briefly show you what you can do with Active Administrator, and we do that with a technology that we call active templates. And an active template is nothing more than essentially a definition of permissions, and the goal there in the second bullet it's listed is to establish consistent permissions across the board. One of the downsides of doing it with the native tools is the fact that although it's extremely powerful, as Jeremy has demonstrated, you're going to have to do this as a one-off every time. It might be nice in the case of whether it be group policies or any permissions within Active Directory to establish appropriate permissions one time by defining them as a template and then pushing that template out multiple times. So for example, if I was to utilize, I'll use Jeremy's example. If he mentioned an OU admin where someone's got, let's say, full rights to an OU, you might define what permissions they have as an active template and then say, okay, Mary is the OU admin for the New York OU, but Tim is the OU admin for the Los Angeles OU, and the idea is that their permissions are consistent each and every time you do the delegation, as opposed to the manual way where you're trying to go, oh, I hope I remember I did it right last. How would I do that? I give those rights. I gave those rights, and then I'm going to give those rights to that person over there, and I think they're the same. Instead, it's just very easy. You grab the active template and you apply it. So let me real quickly show you a quick demo of this, and I think I need to show my test drive here. You guys, can you guys see the Active Administrator 5.5 running there?
Oh yeah.
All right, so just to show you real quick, I'm just going to do this in a very generic sense here, but if I was to go to my Active Templates tab, what I have is a listing of different permission sets. Now remember, whenever you do a delegation, in any platform, whether it's Active Directory or in email or any place that has security, there's always three parts to the delegation. There's a who, a what, and a where. Who's getting the rights, what rights are they getting, and where am I granting those rights? An active template is nothing more than the what. So in and of itself, it has no ability to do anything. It's not until I take the template, whatever it is, let me just grab one here. I'll grab the group policies, manage group policies template, since we're on that topic today. As long as my mouse agrees with me and clicks on it, for some reason it's not. I wonder if something's running.
You mean when 900 people are watching a demo, sometimes the demos don't go perfectly well?
Oh, Jeremy, there's only 809 for the the record, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I have to see if something's running in the taskbar that's killing my VM, because I mean that's never happened before.
I had a buddy that says whenever you're doing demonstrations, it takes exponentially longer the more people, the more eyeballs are looking at you.
I'll buy that. I'll buy that entirely. So again, I have these permissions here to read and write group policies, the links and the options for group policies. And the idea is when I go to add a delegation, you'll see two different sections. Select the users and groups, that's the who, and the delegation paths, that's the where. And if you think about it, I've got all three parts listed here. The active template is the what. I've got the who and the where. You put those three together, you have a delegation. So you can define these delegations and ensure that the permissions are consistent. And then the other aspect to this is the fact that they're self-healing. Carolyn, why don't you tell them a little bit about the self-healing in the active templates?
Sure. Okay. So you mentioned that the active template really defines the what. It's really just a set of security rules, right? But built into Active Administrator is also a self-healing ability in which once you set and delegate those permissions, we actually monitor and enforce that those permissions are there correctly. So if somehow underneath that delegation, a template security accidentally gets deleted or broken by, say, one of your junior administrators, Active Admin will go back in and reset those security permissions for you. So really just makes security management a lot easier because you set it once, you use an active template to define the rules, and then we enforce it as a system.
Excellent. Carolyn actually brings up something that might end up being a question for some of you when you're saying, well, if you're setting the permissions, how is someone going to sort of modify the permissions elsewhere? It's important to note that Active Administrator is nothing more than a console to Active Directory. So the permissions that we're changing here are being done directly to Active Directory. If someone did have permissions to change security, let's say on an OU, they could go into ADU and C and make those changes. But the idea is that we're constantly, like she said, monitoring them and then reinforcing those.
Right. That's a good point, Nick.
So let's go back to the PowerPoint here. And I think, Jeremy, why don't we talk about the next topic?